Hi, everyone.
Hello, Emma.
We have a handful. Hi. We have about 35 people registered for today, so I will give everybody a second longer to trail in here. Hi, Gail.
Hello.
More people coming in. I'm excited for today. This should be a really good presentation. More people.
I'm glad I remembered it because I almost forgot. It's been crazy.
Hi, Travis. Hi, Travis.
Yo. Hey, how you doing?
Good. Okay. I think people will still probably pop in, but we can go ahead and get started here. Yep, more people coming here. All right. All right, can you guys see my screen here?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So I just want to thank you guys. Oh my gosh, there's so many people coming in here. Let's give them a second before I get started. All right. So I just want to thank you guys for coming today. And before we actually get started with Al, I do want to do some house cleaning. So as the EDPA Northwest chapter, we are a nonprofit organization whose mission is to advance the interests of members engaged in the design, production, and service of exhibits and events in experiential environments. And for those of you who don't know me, I am Emma Kristen, and I also want to give a shout out to the rest of our astounding board members. Many of them are on the call today, so if you guys, I can't see you anymore, but if you have your cameras on, you can go ahead and wave. But we have Taylor Freckleton with Fusion Imaging, Anna Rembold with MedEvent, Cindy McIlvaney with RS Displays, Mel White with Classic Exhibits, Nicole Klein with Exhibit Expressions, Jenny Cohn with Condit, and Stan Bender with City Graphics Solutions. And let me jump, sorry, I'm admitting people here. Oh, I lost power to my PowerPoint. Here we go. Hold on, guys, let me stop sharing and reshare. I think it's glitching out.
It's all figured out for you. Thank you.
Okay, are we back in action here?
Yep.
It won't go to the next slide. There we go. Okay, perfect. All right, so I also want to thank our amazing sponsors this year, Aluvision, B Matrix, and CSI. If it weren't for their kind financial support, we would not be able to provide you these great events. And sorry, one second, guys. We have a lot of people coming in here. All right. So before we begin, I want to highlight a few additional events we have coming up. April 23rd at 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, we're hosting an online webinar where Katina Zapay will present on the Future Workforce Playbook. On April 25th at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, we will be at the Las Vegas City National Arena supporting the Chapter Face-Off Hockey Tournament. This is during EMS, so we hope to see you there. On May 21st at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, Jim Worm will be joining us to discuss the state of the labor industry. And then on June 4th at 4 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, we will be hosting an in-person networking happy hour in Denver, Colorado. And then in July, we have not finalized this event yet, but we will be hosting another online webinar about office productivity. And if you didn't know, one of our commitments this year is to host an educational webinar every other month. If there's a specific topic you would like to discuss, please let us know. And with that being said, I would like to kick off today's meeting. So please welcome Al Simon with Sandler Training. Al Simon is the Vice President of Sandler by Neuberger. And if I'm saying that wrong, please correct me. But it is a sales
right.
performance training and coaching firm. Mr. Simon specializes in training and coaching business professionals to be effective and consistent with their selling strategies and tactics. He is the author of numerous articles, blogs, and podcasts for various publications and websites. A graduate of Georgia Tech, Mr. Simon has over 40 years of direct sales experiences. Sandler is the world leader in sales performance training and coaching, sales management training and coaching, and customer service training with over 250 locations in 32 countries. So with that being said, I would like to hand it off over to Al.
Thank you, Emma. Appreciate it. Hello, everybody. I'm grateful for the opportunity to present to you today. We're going to talk about pain, which is the reason why people buy. So I assume that most of you are in sales, if not all of you. You're interested in selling more, and that's why you're here, I would imagine. So let me share my screen. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. And Emma, I got this thing, this pop-up that says that people are in the lobby. So I don't know if that's. Oh, there
Yep,
we go.
I've admitted them all.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, there we go. All right, good.
Perfect.
Okay, so we're going to talk about pain, which is the reasons why people take action. As I said, it says on the screen, reason why people do business. But really, taking action of any kind, people only do it because they have some kind of a situation they want to get away from, or a situation that they want to get toward that's better than where they are today. And so as a sales professional, our job is to guide that conversation so that people will want to take action. And it may be a little bit different to those of you who have not been exposed to Sandler concepts. It may be a little bit different way of looking at selling than you're used to. And if it is, I'm not going to try to convert you to Sandler today. I'm not going to force you to drink our Kool-Aid. But I would like you to just to have an open mind and consider maybe adding to your best practices that you already do with what you learned today. I'm going to probably skate through these slides. I've got 12 slides. Probably skate through them without answering questions and then at the end, we'll just open it up for questions. How's that? Is everybody okay with that way of doing it? So that's dangerous because it's webinar, which means that probably 3/4 of you are multitasking even now. And it's just the nature of the beast. If I can get you to maybe leave your email and your texting alone for the next 50 or so minutes, that'd be awesome. But if you can't, I understand. Okay, so here is the Sandler selling system. It's an entire system of selling, and the cornerstone of it is number 3 there, which is pain. So 3, 4, and 5 are the heavy lifting of the Sandler selling system. That's where we call it qualifying or disqualifying your prospect. And so, you've seen that number 1, bonding and building rapport. We're always doing that. We're always building trust levels, building a relationship. We never stop doing that. 2 is called upfront contracts, which is a mechanism for leading the dance, really setting expectations correctly, so that you don't end up quoting and hoping. That's not a very good strategy. And then from there, you go into what we call the discovery call, which is 3, 4, and 5. And it might be more than one call with a particular prospect, but we're going to do discovery, and we're going to find out pain, which also includes scope. What are they trying to do? Why are they trying to do it? And what is the impact on this whole issue on them and their organization and on them personally? So that's what we're going to talk about today. But then also discovery in our system includes talking about their budget and funding allocated to the project or to the exhibit. And then decision-making process. How do they go about making the decision? Who always gets involved? Who else are they looking at? What is their criteria for making the decision? What's the timeline? All those things. So we won't be talking about those things today. We're going to focus on pain. And then number 6 is where you present your solution. and number 7 is what you do after you win. So that's the Sandler selling system. We're going to zero in on that number 3 there, which is really the most important part of it. You've probably heard always be closing. It's maybe the most infamous line from a terrible movie called Glengarry Glen Ross. If you've ever seen it, it's very what's the word? It's got to be well, don't go see it. It's not a good movie for people who are in sales. You'll find yourself being angry at the actors before it's over. But we say at Sandler, we say always be qualifying. And qualifying is really where the hard work is. And that in fact, even before you ever present your solution, whether it's a proposal or a presentation of some kind, a quote of some kind, whatever that looks like when you show your solution, your prospect in most cases has probably already decided whether or not they're going to buy from you. And that's because most people make buying decisions a lot earlier than they tell the sales professional that they've made it. And that's actually usually done in that qualifying area that we've been talking about. And here's probably the most important thing. If you get nothing else from today, get this. People buy emotionally. They do. Psychologists have studied this, and people make buying decisions emotionally. Now, then they go back and they justify those decisions intellectually. It is a kind of a circle, emotional response, and then intellectual justification. Our job as sales professionals is to get them into an emotional state so that they'll take action, but then to help them to do that justification intellectually so that they don't change their mind. And that's a very important part of this. And so we have these things we call Sandler rules, which are one-liners designed to make a point, not necessarily designed to be taken literally, okay, but mostly designed to make a point. For example, that second one, no pain, no sale. You know, if your prospect doesn't have a reason to take action, we would suggest that you probably not keep chasing them down. Go find another prospect. Now, there's exceptions to that, and you know, there's real world stuff, and so yes, we can talk for a long time on those kinds of things. But in general, if you can't help that prospect find a good, emotional, compelling reason to take action in your favor, you're going to have a hard time closing a deal. So that's a couple of Sandler rules that we'll start with today. Now, psychologists also tell us about motivation to take action, and there's 4 different categories that we look at. And so pain in the present, or in other words, a bad situation now, maybe in your world that might be analogous to a marketing manager who has a trade show coming up and they don't have a decent exhibit. All right, they have pain right now. They've got to get this thing figured out. And that's the most motivating of all the pain categories. Pain in the future, bottom left, that's sort of like, you know, I'm tied to a railroad track, but you know what? I found a comfortable position and it's a nice day and there's no train coming. So I'm good. Except for I know that, you know, in about 3 hours, there's a train that's going to come and then I won't be good. All right. So that's pain in the future. So there's a fear of what might happen down the road. And fear is a very powerful motivator, but it's actually not as powerful as pain in the present. On the right side of this graphic, you've got the pain, the gain in the present and gain in the future. And we call those pain also, even though that's positive pain. But those are not necessarily all that motivating. You know, if one of your prospects feels like they're in good shape with their exhibit for the upcoming trade show or networking event, they feel good about it. You know, but they know it needs upgrades. They know it's really, you know, it could be better. Especially if the funds aren't there or the funds are hard to come by, they're probably going to stay with what they've got. So gain in the present is really not as motivating as the left side of this graphic. And then gain in the future, you know, that's like, hey, someday it would be nice to have X. Well, not many people spend money, you know, this year's budget money on someday it might be nice to have X. And so if your prospect is in one of those categories on the right side, you're going to have a harder time getting that deal done. On the left side, a lot easier. So let's talk about what we call the pain puzzle. What is the, you know, what is the DNA of pain? What does it actually look like? Well, I call it first level, second level, and third level. conversation. So, observable service level problem is level one, and it's not really pain, but it is the start of the conversation. Like in my world, looking for people who want my services to help their sales processes and skill sets. If someone says to me, our revenue levels have not grown as fast as we want them to for the past 3 years. Well, that sounds like pain, but it's not really. It's actually first level, and it's not really pain on itself. And if I start talking about my features and benefits and render a proposal, I'll probably end up losing to a lower cost provider. So that's commodity city right there at that first level pain. But it is the start of the conversation. It's where we mostly start. And it's also the part of pain that most prospects readily give up without even being prompted in many cases. But so that's what's going on, okay? And like in your world, maybe it's, all right, we need a new trade show booth. Okay, well, that's an observable service level pain. It doesn't mean they're necessarily going to buy a new trade show booth, and it doesn't necessarily they're going to buy one from you, but it is the start of the conversation, which is good. So then we go into second level pain, which is the reasons and causes. I call it the context. So if the first level pain is what's going on, the second level pain is why is it going on? What is the context of why we're talking today? And a lot of people who are Sandler trained know they've got to get to that third one. And so they kind of skim through that second level pain. And that would be a mistake. It really would, because second level pain's got some real gold in there. Things like, what have you done in the past? Did that work well? What are you thinking about this time? And then of course all the context of the politics of their organization and who's upset with the marketing and on and on and on. All that is in the reasons, causes, context of the pain conversation. Then there's the business and personal impact of the problem, which is third level pain, and that's real pain, also known as a personal, compelling, and emotional reason to buy from you in the short term. Right, a personal, compelling, emotional reason to buy from you in the short term, and that's third level pain. Let me give you a couple of examples. One of my clients sells into the manufacturing world, and so she's calling on this plant manager, and the plant manager said to her, one of our production lines keeps going down. Well, that's the observable service level problem. That's the start of the conversation. So she engages him in conversation and finds out the reason, the context, second level, is because he's using non-standard parts in some of the machines on that production line. Okay, if she renders a proposal right there and that plant manager goes out and gets a couple of other quotes, who's going to win? Answer, low cost. And that's not her. That's not my client. But a lot of people sell standard parts, including her. You see, so it's easy to be labeled a commodity right there. But she keeps talking to him because she knows she's at second level. She needs to get to third level. And so she starts asking, well, what's this costing you? And she gets her calculator out. Well, it turns out they had to run a third shift and they overload the other two lines. They've had to even buy inventory from a competitor to fulfill orders. And it turns out they lost some angry customers. And you add all that kind of stuff up, and you've got a real business impact, third level pain. But then she said to the plant manager, we'll call him George. She said, George, how about you? How is this impacting you? And George took a deep breath, and then he said to her, I haven't been home in time to tuck my children into bed for 2 solid weeks. And she won that deal, even though her parts cost more than her competitors' parts do. Same parts, cost more. She won the deal, and it wasn't because of the features and benefits of what she sells. It was because this guy wanted to go tuck his kids into bed. Nothing to do with production line being down, nothing at all like that, right? He sees it's personal impact, emotional decisions that win deals. Another example, this was my own example. a guy called me up. I knew him because he goes to my church, but I didn't know him that well. But he called me up. He said, Al, I need your stuff. Well, he's only like half a mile away from me, so I didn't even pre-qual. I just went on over there. We sat down, got a cup of coffee, started talking. I said, Jim, why do you need my stuff? He said, well, I'm going to sell my company. I said, Jim, I'm not a broker. I'm kind of curious, a little confused here. Why are we talking? He said, here's why we're talking. And by the way, he was the owner of a boutique market research company, about 30 people. He said, well, I'm trying to sell my company and retire. But the offers I get to buy my company are too low. They're down here. And I need those offers to be up here. Okay, well, there we go. That's an observable service level problem. That's level 1. So I started asking him. I said, well, why are the offers down here and not up here? And he said, well, because when these people do their due diligence to see if they want to buy my company, they find out that I, the owner, I bring in about 3/4 of the revenue. And so they want me to stay for a while if they're going to buy my company. But I don't want to stay. I want to retire. When they find that out, the offer comes in down here because they got to make up all that revenue somehow. So I said, well, who else brings in the other 25%? So that's my soundtrack. How's that? I don't know who that was. That was great. Okay. So anyway, I said, who else does the selling for their 25%? He said, well, we got 3 people that sell, but they're market researchers. They don't want to sell, but we're a smaller company, so they got to wear a lot of hats. So they don't want to, and they don't do much of it. So they only bring in about 1/4. Well, right there, I could say, Jim, I got a great program for your 3 people. And I do. But if I did, he might say, yeah, it is a good song. He might say, he might go out and get another quote, right? And I've got plenty of good competitors, just probably like y'all do. I've got plenty of really good competitors. And they could also render a quote, and I would probably lose again on price. So I knew I wasn't done. I can't sell right there at second level for his 3 people. So I said, Jim, I got to know something. I got to know, why does your offer have to be up here in order to sell your company? And that's when he put his pen down, sat back in his chair, and he took a big breath. And he said, Al, let me tell you what's really going on. And he told me about, he's got this land on Marco Island, and he's got these architectural plans to build his dream house down there. And every year he gets a chance to go down there a couple times a year, stops at the Starbucks, gets a hot cup of coffee, stands on his property, looks out at the Gulf of Mexico, watches the sunset. And he said to me, I want to do that every day from the balcony of my dream home. And I can't build it unless the offer's up here. So I sat back in my chair, and for a good 20, 30 minutes, we talked about ocean breezes, sunsets, dream houses, not one word about sales training. He's writing the down payment, the check for the down payment. He stops mid-signature and he says, wait a minute, what am I buying? I said, Jim, you finish that signature, hand me that check and I'll tell you. And he laughed. You see, it wasn't about the features and benefits of my sales training. What was it about? Dream homes, ocean breezes, hot coffee, sunsets. That's what it was about. An emotional decision to get there. And here's the thing, most sales professionals bail out in the discovery call long before they get to 3rd level, the impact level. Long before. And that's a problem. That's a problem, because then you make yourself a commodity, and prospects like to make salespeople look like a commodity. So another standard rule. They always bring something else up. They always find some other reason to be talking to you without really telling you what's going on. You got to be able to engage them in conversation, ask the extra questions, maybe 5, 6, maybe 10 extra questions to really uncover 3rd level impact pain. And here's what it might look like. We call this the pain funnel. We tell our clients to memorize it. And then we tell them, don't memorize it. I see Melissa there. She remembers. Look at her smile. You remember that? We talked about that. Remember that? Emma, you remember that. Memorize the pain funnel, but don't memorize the pain funnel. You know, it's really about, it's got to be conversational. And besides, sales calls are like snowflakes or fingerprints. There's no two alike. You know, they look a lot alike, but when you get underneath all the details, they're all different. And so I have never had a sales call that asked these questions in this order. Never have one. Probably never will. But I've had lots of sales calls, probably hundreds of them, that have asked questions like these and others along with them. And you take a look at this, you know, the details that, you know, tell me more about that. Can you be more specific? As soon as they give you a surface level 1 pain point, you can say, would you tell me more about that? Can you give me an example? Can you be more specific? And that kicks in what we call the 70-30 rule, which means they're going to be doing about 2/3 of the talking once you get them going. And that's great because you got 2 ears, 1 mouth. You want them to be doing most of the talking. Until you get to where you're showing your solution, you want your prospects telling you stuff. You want the information coming your way because knowledge is power. So most salespeople had somebody in their past tell them that they should be in sales because they have the gift of gab. Well, the best salespeople have the gift of hearing and listening and not the gift of gab. So ask good questions, get the prospect talking, and then you can go into, well, how long has that been going on? Or, you know, what have you tried to do about it? You can go into those kinds of questions. And then, you know, that question there toward the bottom, how much you think that's costing you? That's the one my client asked of that plant manager. Got the calculator out. You know, any way you can quantify, we call it quantifying pain. Any way you can do that, where you set the stage for the fact that they can save and gain a lot more money than they invest when they buy from you, that sets the ROI. That sets the value proposition. And so I was doing my research for this talk, and I looked up the EDPA, and then I got out my Chat GPT. How many of y'all are using AI? Anybody using AI? That's pretty awesome. So I asked Chat GPT, I said, as an expert in sales and business development for an exhibit company, what are the 3 top pain points that a marketing manager who's facing a trade show might have? And I got a bunch of stuff back, including measuring return on investment was one of the top 3. Right? Marketing managers have a hard time measuring return on investment for what they invest in trade shows. And as y'all know more than I do, that's a lot more than the exhibit. There's a lot of expense involved in exhibiting at a trade show or any kind of an association event. So how do you know if it's money well spent? Well, that's a pain they have. That's a surface level 1 pain they have.
Ready?
So if you can, so the next prompt that you can ask from that is, what are the questions that I should be asking as marketing manager? You put that prompt in and you'll get a bunch of questions that you can ask. And some of them will look like what's on the screen. Others won't, but they'll be tailored to your industry. It's a great way to use AI is, what are the questions I should be asking? What are the pain points that I'm going to go after in a typical sales call in my market? And you'll get good stuff there. But quantify that pain. And then make sure you get to the personal impact level. How do you feel about that? You know, when Jim told me, let me tell you what's really going on. When my client asked that plant manager, how does this affect you personally? Magic happens when you do that. Magic happens. But only if you paid attention to number 1 a while ago. Let me get back up there. Remember number 1? Oops. There it is. Bonding and building rapport. All right, if you have to build trust for them to open up with you. You have to really work on that, because otherwise you're going to be a commodity and you're not going to get to 3rd level impact pain. So you really got to get good at that. Okay? Now, listen for those emotional words. Listen for them. Now, I'm guessing that some of your prospects, for example, maybe you're calling on the marketing department and maybe also procurement, or there's a purchasing agent or someone like that, or CFO. A lot of times people like CFOs, procurement, purchasing agents, they have been trained in negotiating to be on the other side of the table from sales professionals. And one of the things they've been trained to do is not to show emotion. And so it can be frustrating. You're looking for emotions, you're looking for frustration, you're looking for worry, you're looking for concern, you're looking for overwhelmed, you're looking for all these kinds of emotions that you know will make it much more likely that you'll get a deal here. But if you're talking to someone who's been trained not to show emotion, they're going to keep you at a commodity level on the outside. But remember this, on the inside, they still have those emotions. They're still there. They're just trained not to show them. You know this. All of you know, you don't walk on the used car lot, and when the salesperson comes out, you go, "Oh, I love that one." You don't say that. You say that in your toast, right? They got you. You say, "Oh, I'm just kind of looking. I saw the same car down the street. You know, just $5,000 less." And you just stop right there, right? But you know why people who are trained not to show emotion, why they're so effective in getting a better price. But here's the thing, real sales professionals have a high close rate at their terms. And the reason they can do that is because they're getting the third level pain in those discovery calls. They're getting right down there to the ocean breezes, hot coffee, sunsets, tucking your kids into bed stuff. That's what they're getting to. And that's the difference between sales professionals and order takers. So then when you've discovered all the pain there is, third level impact stuff, then you want to summarize it. And you say things like, "Alex, let me make sure I got this straight. What you're hoping we could do for you are X, Y, and Z." And when you mention X, Y, and Z, you say frustration, worry, concern, whatever the emotions that were exhibited. And then you say, "Did I get that right?" And you don't move on to the next thing until they're satisfied that you understand exactly what their motivations are. And then you're there. This is a big one. Folks, you are not walking websites. You're not. In fact, studies show that these days, most buyers have already been doing a lot of research before they ever talk to a live salesperson. They've already used ChatGPT themselves. They've already been on your website. They've already Googled a bunch of stuff. They've already looked at LinkedIn. They've already done a bunch of stuff before they ever talk to you live. They don't need you to regurgitate what your website says, what your brochures say, what your white papers say, what your spec sheets say. They already know that stuff. What they're looking for from you is fill in the blanks. And they're looking for you to know that you can come through. That 2 days before that trade show, they're not looking to change a graphic. It's already been done, right? It's already been fixed because they can trust you to make sure it's done. It's delivered. It'll set up just fine. No worries. That's what they're looking for from you. And it's a big difference than it was even, what, 5, 6 years ago? I don't know. Whenever, Melissa, when we were working with B Matrix, I don't remember when it was, but you know, they weren't doing that much research on selling companies at that point, like they are today. And it's a game changer. Right? We have to be subject matter experts. We have to be doctors diagnosing before we prescribe. So we have to be asking all these questions, and we have to be really, really good at it, because it doesn't help me to assume that my competition is inept. I can't win deals just because they screw up. I've got to win deals because we're better at my price, not a discounted price. I had a sales call 2 hours ago. And I said to the guy, you know, we had a good pain conversation, have to have that. I said to the guy, "I don't suppose you got a budget set aside for this, do you?" And he said, "I don't want to spend more than 50 grand. I said, "That's a problem." Because based on the scope that you're telling me, it's probably going to be more like 80. He said, "Well, can we do 50? I said, yes, as long as we go 8 months and not a full year. And there was this silence. And I just sat there. And eventually he said, yeah, let's do that. You know, don't lower your price, lower the scope. Let me say it again. Don't lower your price, lower the scope, and do not sell on features and benefits. I had a client call me up. She said, Al, I got a problem. So my prospect has my proposal and has my competitor's proposal. And it turns out that my competitor is a good 35% lower. And my prospect doesn't know why we're higher. In fact, my prospect tells me that our websites look almost identical. So I said, why in the world are you selling features and benefits? That's what your website talks about, is the features and benefits. You know, we're good at service. We're good at experience. We have all this responsiveness. We have this, we have that. Well, like, of course. No one's going to say, you know, we're not very responsive. Our quality is poor, and we're overpriced, hoping to get your business anyway. And so, but my client knows there's a difference between what she sells and what her competitor sells. But the prospects get confused because the messaging that's available to them is confusing because everybody sounds alike. Stop selling features and benefits. Stop using email to send proposals and quotes. Have live conversations with people. Talk it through. Ask more questions. Get them talking. And talk about impact. How much does this cost when you get the calculator out? How do you feel about that? How's it impacting you personally? All these things, these kinds of things, if you spend more time in the discovery call and don't worry about that proposal, you'll win more and you'll win more easily. Because really, when I think about it, the proposal doesn't really matter. What matters is that live conversation where they make the emotional decision. Yep, there it is. There it is. I'm going with Gail's company. I'm going to do it. All right, I'm going with Sebastian's company. They don't tell Sebastian they've made that decision, but they've made that decision. Why don't they tell him? Because they still want to see the proposal. But your proposal's not going to say anything different than you've been talking about already. All right. Let's do questions.
Does anyone have any questions? Or has anyone on the call done any of the Sandler training before? I know Melissa's on, she's participated, and I see Crystal's name is on. I know she's done Sandler training in the past. But yeah, has anyone else experienced it? No. Okay. I mean, well, Melissa and Crystal, if you guys have anything to say, like from your experience, I mean, please feel free to share. I also went through it. It's been a few years now, but it was really great and it completely changed my approach to things. And as you know, even if you're not in sales, you're always selling. You know, you're selling yourself. It can be used for the design departments because you're trying to sell your design concept. And so Al today only highlighted the third segment, which is pain. And so there is a lot more to the program, and it really is helpful.
Emma, I'd be happy to contribute. Hi, I'm Jenny with Condit. Thanks, Al, for the presentation. I'm a Sandler trained salesperson as well. Took years of classes in Denver from one of the trainers here. And yeah, I love the system. I think, you know, just the pausing, waiting for answers, asking a lot of questions. I mean, I just feel like it's a good communication tool that could have, I mean, yes, it has sales implications, but it has life implications as well. I mean, you can use Sandler at home with your spouse and your kids. I mean, I just appreciate that it's a mental shift in the way that you can think about sales and communication. So yeah, I was smiling the whole time that you were talking. It was just so nice to have a refresher. It's been years since I've actually sat through a class, so I appreciate it a lot.
It wasn't Gary, was it?
It was Gary. Yeah.
Oh man,
he was a legend.
He's a legend. Yeah. You know what his tagline was
No, I
Remember?
don't remember. I do.
Raise your prices.
Oh,
He would end every session with raise your prices.
yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, he was a spectacular man, and I feel very privileged that I was able to learn from him and under him. Obviously he had other people on his staff, but you know, I always looked forward to those times when Gary was actually teaching the classes himself. So, so yes.
Okay.
It's wonderful. Again, I would highly recommend it. I put a few of my salespeople through it over the years, but once Gary was no longer there, it didn't make as much sense anymore. So, but yeah, it's a cool system.
Well, there's a couple of good ones there in Denver still.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll email
Yeah.
you afterwards and get a rec on who I should
There you
reach
go.
out to.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just saw Crystal's text or chat there, and what was it again?
Hello. I
Yeah.
put it in the chat, but I wanted to
Yeah.
just give some context behind why that's meaningful for me. And by the way, hi Al, haven't seen you in forever.
I know it's been a while. Good to see you.
Pre-pandemic, well, you can't see me because my camera is not on right now, but
I see
was the
your
person in the
CA.
company.
Yeah.
But no, that resonates with me a lot. And in
Yeah.
fact, I've been having these conversations with my team about just my perspective and view on how do we, find those rich deals or, those real opportunities.
Yeah.
I tend to think that emailing proposals, like literally getting on the hamster wheel and tackling the list is like trying to find a needle in a haystack. But when
Yeah.
I'm on the show floor, not only do I get to show up and be my best self, and show my charm and personality and all of that, I can do all the things that you just mentioned during this call. I'm having a lot of discovery conversations on the floor and then
Oh, yeah.
even scheduling meetings, during the show, coming back the next day and meeting with prospects about, those pain points that you talk about. And then
Nice.
of course, following up after the show and securing that next call or meeting to really dive in deeper and getting to the end goal. So that's what works for me. So I'm shifting away from the emailing and proposal. Not that it's not completely unnecessary, but so what's your opinion? Based on what I just shared.
This is one of my pet peeves, Crystal.
Sure.
And my clients know that if they call me for coaching and I ask them if they presented that proposal live or did they email it in, if they say anything other than I presented it live, I will hang up on them. It is a major faux pas. You are making yourself commodity when you just mail it in. Your proposal is your good stuff, right? It's it's the stuff. It's the magic, and it backs up what you talked about in the discovery call. And if you just send in a proposal, you don't know what they're going to do with it. They could show it to your competitor or the incumbent. They could delete it. They could do a lot of different things with it, and none of it will you even know they're doing. So you're better off. I'll get to you in a second, Gail. Thank you for having your hand up. You're better off presenting live. Now you'll probably get some pushback because prospects are used to the salesperson. Go ahead and then mailing it in, and so they'll say, we don't need to meet. Just send it on over. And so you got to stand up for yourself there. Let your competitors do that. You present live.
That was my
Yeah.
question, because I
Yeah.
always want to present live, and sometimes I get the pushback, well, it's the account manager. I need to show up my boss. I'm not the decision maker. And, or I got a meeting and I really need to get these numbers, because my thing is just what you said. I want to show it live and have a discussion and address. I sell modified shipping containers. It's not your standard type exhibit. So it's
Yeah.
going to be probably a little bit more complicated. So Mike, I want to make sure you understand what you're looking at. And then I get the pushback and then I get busy, so I can fault myself at that and not pushing back in them. So my question was, how do I make that my star to shine? And I'm not going to send it without you agreeing.
Yeah. So you've got to have a talk track for the pushback. You got to expect it. And here's one that here's the one that I use and I would suggest. I'd say, Gail, I could email it to you. I could do that. And we used to do that. but we don't do it anymore. And the reason why we don't do it anymore is because we found out that people actually had questions, but they minimized the questions in their own mind, thought they could just maybe email the questions to the salesperson and get it handled. But they're busy people, and so it just never takes place. And then it turns out we have, mismanaged expectations. I say all that to say this. Guessing your schedule is really busy. I get it. Let's find maybe before breakfast. I mean, or maybe, on a phone call, and I'll send that thing over to you and then we'll get on the phone call, something like that. What do you think? That's
and
a
just
longer talk
chiming,
track than you want. Go ahead, Emma. I'm sorry.
chiming in too, and correct me if I'm wrong, but we did not talk about it in this session today, but is upfront contracts. And so it's actually just like setting up the precedence of what's about to happen. And so whether it's in an email, whether it's on a phone call, but before you even get to the proposal stage of that, like set up what the process is going to be and say like, okay, if you have, this information to me by this date, we'll get you a proposal by this date and we would like to present it to you live, and setting it up on the front half versus like when it's completed and saying, hey, this is done. Can we set up a call to review? Where it's kind of catching them off guard, whereas it's like set up ahead of time. You can maybe get something on the calendar. They're more like apt to receive that via live.
Great point. Yeah, great point.
Yes, great. Thanks.
But Gail, you mentioned something that's very interesting early on in what you said. You said that maybe you're not talking to the decision maker, and that's a whole different world, right? If you're talking to a recommender or an information gatherer, there's a whole other process that we use there. If you can't get to the ultimate decision maker, so there's actually two steps. One is do everything you can to get to that person or persons, and then if you can't, if it's absolutely exhausting, you've exhausted all efforts and you still can't, then there's a different process for presenting to someone who's going to be presenting to the ultimate decision maker on your behalf. And I don't have time to go into it today because it's pretty complicated, but you need to know it. You need to know it. So my information is on the screen there. Call me, email me, and we'll talk about it. Who else?
And I mean,
Somebody else?
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, anyway.
Is there another hand up?
I think Crystal's hand is still up, but I don't know if she has anything else to say. Oh, Nicole Klein, there she goes.
So yeah, I did have my hand up and then took it down because it was fairly well answered in the alternatives to being able to get there live. A lot of us are dealing with people all over the country, different time zones and things like that. But I do think it's interesting what you said, and I could see how asking to have the decision maker in that meeting is important too. I mean, I just think the getting on a Teams call, even if they don't turn on their cameras, you've got your cameras on and you can go through it and ask them the questions, and they can, you can hear what the pain point is behind the person who's been asking you the questions. I mean, that's, I think, one of the biggest barriers that some of us deal with is it's not always the decision maker that you're talking to. You're talking to somebody's assistant.
Yeah, well, that call I was talking about a couple hours ago was a Zoom call with two people, one of which was the main decision maker. And then I realized about half an hour before that meeting that person had not yet accepted the invitation. So that's an important point, because so now I'm sitting there a half an hour before the meeting and I'm thinking, okay, if that person, whose name was Josh, doesn't show up, then I have a whole different upfront contract, to use the tool that Emma was referring to. I have a whole new upfront and I'm not going to not have the meeting with the other person, the recommender type. But I'm not going to do the things with that person I would have done with the main decision maker. So now I've got two. I'm sitting there, 10 minutes before, I've got two different pre-call plans. One for if Josh shows up, and one for if Josh doesn't show up. What I'm not going to do is what we call spill your candy in the lobby. Just talk about all our good stuff to the recommender, and who probably does not have authority to release the funds anyway. So I mean, it's just, so you got to be able to understand who you're talking to, and then what makes sense to execute based on who's there. So I would have done some stuff with the recommender, mostly tried to get background information, probably answer some of his questions, but then I would have set another upfront contract for another meeting where Josh is there before I start talking turkey. But Josh did show up, so it was all good.
I think that's scary for some of us to hold
Yeah.
out the information that they're asking for, because we think that being supportive and sending that information is what our job is. So,
Yeah, I get it. My first job out of college was sales. Matter of fact, that's all I've ever done in my career is sales. And my first boss taught me that my job was to educate the prospect. So for years, I was not doing 70-30 rule. I was doing, 10-90, right? I was doing almost all the talking, thinking that I was doing it right. But what was happening was I was doing what we call unpaid consulting. I was giving so much information to the prospect that they could actually take that information and either go do it themselves or hire someone cheaper to do it with my insights. That's crazy. It's bananas.
thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And also something I would love, though, I joked with Al before this because I love Sandler training and I could eat it up. And I was like, if I could have you on every single week, I would do that. And he's like, I would have to start, charging for all of these educational presentations, So yeah,
Unpaid
absolutely.
consultant.
You can't give it away. Yeah.
Spilling
Sorry,
all this
Jenny, go ahead.
candy, and there's a lot of
Yeah.
I just wanted to mention, sort of dovetail on what Nicole just said, but one of the other things, like a foundational principle of Sandler, is that the salesperson has rights and that your time is just as valuable as the time of the prospect. And you don't want to seem needy. And you don't need the business. You want the business if it's a good fit, but you shouldn't act like you need it, because then you seem desperate. So, a good prospect would be able to get that sense from you if you're just spilling all the features and benefits. So I just love the whole idea of just asking lots of questions to get them talking about themselves and their situation as much as possible, so that you don't have to do that much work. You just sit
There you
back. Yeah.
That's great, Jenny. Yeah, think about it. Yeah, who's got control of the meeting? The person asking the questions or the person answering the questions?
Mm-hmm. That was good, Jenny. I like that. I wanted to ask you, Al, what do you think about LinkedIn or just social in general? And there are prospects that we go and follow, after we kind of met their teams at shows. What do you think about joining their conversations, when they're posting news about their companies and they're celebrating milestones and accomplishments? What kind of impact do you think that creates for the salesperson, if you will?
Yeah. LinkedIn is an interesting animal. It's changed a lot. I was one of the early adopters back when we had no idea what it was and what we were doing with it. 05, 06, somewhere in that area. And it's really, I think LinkedIn's been ruined by the connect and pitchers, people who want to connect with you, and as soon as you connect back, they pitch you. And so people have stopped connecting. In fact, LinkedIn's taken the connect off the home page, right? The profile page. They put it under the more button. But the follow button is on that front page. And I think there's a lesson there. Don't connect and pitch. It's LinkedIn, to do it well, to do it right, is a slow game. It's not a fast game, it's a slow game. So certainly identify your target market and offer to connect with those people, but don't pitch them. And if they don't connect, and follow them, and every chance you get, comment on what they post. If you connect, of course, they're going to see your posts too, and they might comment on yours. But after a few months, I don't know, 8, 9, 10 months of watching each other's posts, then you can say, hey, Crystal, you send a LinkedIn message. Hey, Crystal, love what you just posted there about XYZ. I don't know, would you be open to hopping on a call and discussing it further? Or some kind of call to action like that, but it's way down the line. It's months away. Don't do the connect and pitch. you're just adding to the pollution that has infested LinkedIn. All right, so use LinkedIn for research to see who's doing what, who's posting what, who's connected to who. Use it to help you ask for referrals and introductions. That's awesome. But if you connect and pitch, you can't tell anybody I trained you. That's an upfront contract, by the way. Yeah. What do you think about that? What do you think about that answer?
Oh, no, it's totally not just aligned, with what I think, but it's what I do.
Yeah.
I think it's back to what I think it was Jenny who mentioned, not to come across or appear desperate. I think when we do that, you connect and then immediately after you're sending your pitch, I think that's a setup for failure, if you will, potentially. And so, I think your answer is perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes you look like a telemarketer. I mean, it's really bad. But even worse, it makes people not want to connect with anybody. So those of us that are, that are professionals of what we do, we get lumped into that category. And, by our target market because of what other people are doing. What else? Got 4 minutes. Unless, Emma, you got some wrap-up stuff to do. No?
No,
Okay.
I don't. No, I mean, yeah, if anybody has anything else, feel free to share. But otherwise, I mean, thank you so much, Al. This was really informative and beneficial, at least for myself. And I have a feeling for a few others on the call as well. So if anybody on here is interested in learning more, Al's information is on the screen and we will send out his contact information afterwards. So yeah, please feel free to reach out.
Yeah.
Go.
I just wanted to say, Al, it's great to hear from you, and it was a great refresher. I really do appreciate it.
You're welcome. I miss you guys.
It's been a while, and we're all in different places, and we've all been multiple places since we last were with you.
Yeah. Nature of the beast.
But it's all good. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Cool.
Well, I have to get to another call, but thank you so much, Emma. This was great. Thank you, Al.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye. You're welcome. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you later.